She spilled coffee on her blouse and called herself an idiot. Not clumsy, not, oh well, happens to everyone. Idiot. Said out loud to an empty kitchen in a voice she would never use on another living person. That was Tuesday's session. A woman in her 30s, successful, kind to strangers, kind to her dog, kind to coworkers who mess up big things. And she stood at her counter calling herself stupid over 4 ounces of coffee. I didn't say anything for a second. I just watched her realize what she'd said. That's usually how it goes in my office. Not some dramatic confession, just a small true thing slipping out sideways, and both of us sitting there in the quiet of it.
Here's what I want to talk about today. What it actually means to be kind to yourself when you're struggling. Not affirmations taped to a mirror. Not you deserve nice things. Something quieter and honestly harder than that. If you've ever caught yourself narrating your own mistakes in a voice that would end a friendship if you used it on anyone else, you're in the right place. I'm Sarah. I'm a psychologist. I used to be a physicist before I understood people were the harder equation, and most of what I know about being kind to myself, I learned very late and very badly. So, welcome to Breathe and Begin.
Before we get into it, if this is landing somewhere in you, stay a minute. Let this one sit with you. Maybe pass it to someone who talks to themselves the way that woman did over spilled coffee. It helps more than you'd think. Here's the shape of what we're doing today. We're going to talk about why self-kindness feels dangerous to so many capable people. We're going to name the difference between kindness and self-pity because they get confused constantly, and it's costing people their peace. And we're going to end somewhere practical, not a slogan, but something you can actually do the next time you catch your own voice turning cruel.
Let's start with the lie underneath it. Most people don't think they're being cruel to themselves. They think they're being accurate. That's the trick of it. The inner critic doesn't announce itself as an enemy. It announces itself as honesty. I'm just being realistic. I'm just holding myself accountable. As if kindness and accountability were opposites. As if you could only get one by giving up the other.
I ask people to do something in session sometimes, and it's uncomfortable every time. I ask them to say the thing they just said to themselves, out loud, to me, as if I were the one who'd made the mistake. Almost nobody can finish the sentence. They laugh, or they wince, or they say, I could never say that to you. Right. So why is it acceptable to say to the one person who has to live inside your head all day? That gap between how you treat a friend and how you treat yourself isn't a small inconsistency. It's usually the whole problem, wearing a disguise.
Let's clear something up, because this is where people get stuck and stay stuck. Self-kindness is not letting yourself off the hook. It's not lowering the bar. It's not telling yourself everything is fine when it isn't. A client of mine, I'll call her Renee, and she's a composite of several people I've worked with over the years, came in convinced that if she stopped being harsh with herself, she'd stop being good at her job. She said, if I'm not hard on myself, who's going to make sure I don't screw up? Like cruelty was the only quality control system she trusted. But here's what we actually know, clinically. Harsh self-talk doesn't sharpen performance, it just raises the cost of trying. People don't take more risks under criticism, they take fewer. They get quieter, smaller, more cautious, because the price of failure has gone up. Self-kindness isn't the opposite of standards, it's what makes it survivable to keep having them. There's a specific fear I hear constantly, and it goes something like, if I'm gentle with myself now, while I'm struggling, I'll become someone who's always gentle with myself, soft, lazy, excused from everything, as if self-compassion were a slope, and at the bottom of it is a person who never tries. That's not how it works. Self-pity keeps you stuck facing the wound. Self-kindness turns you, gently, back toward your life. One says, poor me, nothing will change. The other says, this is hard, and I'm still going to walk through it, and I don't need to hate myself on the way. Self-pity closes a door. Kindness opens one. Usually the door back into your own day, your own responsibilities, your own next right move. You are allowed to be both gentle and still expected to show up. Those two things are not in competition. People just rarely see them modeled together. A lot of us learned this early, and not on purpose.
My own mother got sick when I was 12. Lupus, though I didn't have that word yet. I just had the smell of rubbing alcohol replacing the smell of bread in our kitchen. And somewhere in there, I decided that needing anything was a burden I shouldn't add to the pile. Strength, I thought, meant asking for nothing. That belief didn't come from cruelty. It came from love, actually. A child trying to make things easier for the people she loved. But it followed me for 20 years, into a marriage, into motherhood, and it took a long, ugly collapse for me to understand that being hard on myself was never protecting anyone. It was just protecting the belief. I tell you that not because your story is mine, but because most harsh inner voices were installed for a reason that made sense once, in a much smaller kitchen a long time ago. It's worth asking where yours came from. Not to blame anyone, just to notice it wasn't always yours. Here's something practical, and I mean this literally, physiologically. When you're struggling, your body is already in some version of threat state. Cortisol up, muscles tight, breath shallow and high in the chest. Then the inner critic shows up and adds another threat on top of the first one. Now you're not just dealing with the hard thing, you're also under attack from inside.
The nervous system doesn't care what looked reasonable on paper. It just registers danger. And a body that perceives constant internal danger doesn't recover faster. It just stays activated longer. This is why people can logic themselves into calm and still feel terrible. Because the part of you that's suffering isn't reading an essay, it's reading your tone of voice. So when I say be kind to yourself, I don't mean it as a nice idea. I mean it as something your actual body needs in order to come back down out of the alarm state and start healing the thing that hurt in the first place. There's a version of being nice to yourself that's actually avoidance wearing softer clothes. Endless distraction, refusing to look at anything hard, calling that self-care because the word is convenient. That's not what we're talking about either.
Real kindness toward yourself when you're struggling usually involves looking directly at the hard thing and simply refusing to add insult to it. You can say, I made a mistake, and this matters, and I'm going to fix what I can, with warmth. You don't need the extra layer of, and I'm an idiot for doing it, bolted on top. That second part never fixed anything. It just made the fixing lonelier. There was a night, years ago, when I couldn't hold myself up anymore. Not metaphorically. My father found me at the kitchen table at 3 a.m, and instead of a lecture, he carried me to the couch and sat awake until the sun came up. He didn't say I should have handled things better. He didn't remind me what I'd cost anyone. He just stayed.
I remember thinking much later that the kindness I couldn't give myself that night, someone else had to hand to me instead. And the work of my whole life since then has been learning to do for myself what he did for me that night. Not fix it, not lecture it, just stay. That's the model, if you need one. Not a pep talk, just staying. People talk about self-compassion like it's a trait you either have or don't. Like some people are just born gentle with themselves, and the rest of us miss the memo. It isn't a trait. It's closer to a language you didn't grow up speaking, and languages can be learned late, badly at first, with an accent, and still become fluent. The first attempts feel fake. That's normal. If you've spent 30 years narrating your life in a critical voice, the first time you try a kind one, it's going to feel like a lie you're telling yourself. It isn't a lie, it's just unfamiliar. Fluency comes from repetition, not sincerity you don't feel yet. Practically, and I promise this is not a slogan, it looks like catching the sentence before it finishes. You spill the toffee, and the old sentence starts loading. You idiot. And somewhere in the middle of that sentence, you interrupt it. Not with, I'm amazing, because that won't land either. Your nervous system will smell the lie. Interrupt it with something smaller and truer. That was clumsy. It's fine. Let me clean it up. That's it. That's the whole move, most days. Not grand self-love, just a slightly less cruel sentence, chosen on purpose, in the 2 seconds where the old one used to run automatically. Do that enough times, in enough small moments, and eventually the automatic sentence starts to change on its own. Not because you forced it,
because you outvoted it, one spilled coffee at a time.
I think about that woman in my office sometimes. The coffee, the blouse, the words she used on herself. What we ended up talking about wasn't the stain. It was the voice. Whose was it, originally? When did she start believing she had to earn the right to be spoken to gently? If any part of today found you, if you recognized your own voice in that kitchen, or in mine, or in Renee's, I want you to know something plainly. You don't have to earn kindness by suffering the right amount first. You're allowed to be gentle with yourself in the middle of the mess, not just after you've cleaned it up.
That's the reframe I want to leave you with. Being kind to yourself while you're struggling isn't a reward for handling it well. It's often the only thing that makes handling it possible at all. If this episode kept you company today, let it keep someone else company too. Pass it along or just sit with it a little longer before you go back to your evening. Either one helps more than you'd guess. And the next time the hard sentence starts loading about a mistake, a spill, a bad day, a version of yourself you wish had done better, see if you can catch it halfway through. You don't need the whole speech to be different, just the tone. I'm Sarah. Be gentle tonight. You're allowed to be.